is up, everyone? It's Canaan,
It's Jesse.
and we are the Geeky Saying Couple. Before we get started, please remember, if you enjoy our content, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, that way you'll be notified of all future uploads, and please click that like button, because it helps us in that very dreaded algorithm. So, today we are doing another Rwby Volume 8 discussion, and it is all about the bees, of course. It's us. Why would we not cover the bees? And Renora. It's pretty much talking about how both ships were handled in Volume 8 and how pretty much Rwby threw in little more hints that they are, running with the whole parallels thing, but also in how the ships were handled differently because, let's face it, both ships may have similarities, but they are definitely going differently as far as how they're being written. So before we start, you got any shout outs or anything? Any new news or anything? I don't know. You're usually in your own little world sometimes. So, this is this goes up on Friday, I believe. So hopefully everyone who is getting the game is enjoying Resident Evil Village. If you're wondering when my first Let's Play episode is, if you didn't watch the final episode of Resident Evil 7, first episode will be up on Monday. Cannot wait. So
I can.
well, it's gonna be till Monday because with our slow internet, it takes me like a whole day and night to get the day one patches downloaded. So yeah,
I meant for as far as editing goes.
I know. I'll keep track of the cut moments. You don't have to worry. So let's discuss this. So really, before we get to Volume 8, we need to talk a little bit about volumes that have already happened. Really, if you look really closely, you can see similarities in the early volumes. Now, they're not as plentiful because, let's admit it, Rwby did not focus a lot on romance in the early volumes if you weren't John and Pyrrha. They did throw little things of Nora and Ren in there, and of course with Blake and Yang, but let's face it, the early volumes kind of belong to Arcos in a way, because they were the first major romance of Rwby, even though it crashed and burned before it could really fly.
Which is another reason why it was probably the main focus as far as romance.
Yeah, which it kind of stinks because a lot of fans still think that every romantic pairing is going to end tragically just because Arcos did. Like, it's one thing I've noticed about the Rwby fandom. They hold on to stuff even years after it's happened. But,
like the redhead thing.
yeah, the redhead thing and all. I mean, there may be something there because of what happened in Volume 8 and everything. But, so we're going to go as early as Volume 3, and that is because of this scene right here. Now, what do we know about Rwby? Well, for one, color is always important, but we have also learned that camera position and the way things are shot are always meant to be something. Now, one thing looking at this image also made me realize, all the way to Volume 8, when it comes to these two couples, Blake and Nora are always paired off, and Ren and Yang are always paired off. So you've got in this scene right here, it's not much to talk about right here, but out of the four, of course, Yang is gravely injured because this is when she lost her arm. And notice, out of Ren and Nora, it seems Ren is the one who is injured. Nora, I believe, was just exhausted. Now with Blake, she's also hurt. She was stabbed, but she's awake. She's conscious and aware and all that. So I forgot who brought this up to me, but it does seem like it is kind of already a little thing of relating Bumbleby to Renora. It might not be, but I just thought it was worth mentioning. So then we move on to Volume 4 with the very famous airship scene between Ren and Nora. Now this, for a lot of people, was enough to consider Renora canon, because finally, for the first time since the show had started, Ren showed to reciprocate Nora's feelings for him. Because before this, everyone knew that Nora had a crush on Ren, but people were still questioning if Ren felt the same. And this was kind of a way to show that. Now, sadly, they didn't do much with Ren and Nora in volumes 5 and 6. There might have been little sprinkles here and there, but they just didn't do much with them until volume 7. Then, of course, you have in volume 6, you've got Yang and Blake having a very similar moment on an airship as well. And one thing that, now this right, like really before volume 6, I wasn't hearing much talk of Renora and Bumbleby parallels until after volume 6 happened. And that was mostly because of this moment, you know, them holding each other's hands on the airship. And, you know, with Ren and Nora laid her head on Ren's shoulder and he laid his on hers. And Blake and Yang just simply, you know, smiled at each other. But that's mostly because even though it's kind of hard to say this because of what happens later, but I guess Ren and Nora in a way at this point were a little further in their relationship because they've known each other since they were kids, where Blake and Yang, it was moving at a much smaller pace, I guess you could say. But yeah, this is when people really started talking about the similarities. And, you know, between 6 and 7, you know, people were talking about, you know, this scene, auras, eye color, and then going back and noticing things in earlier volumes, or even Rwby Chibi, you know, to name a few. I believe there was one where, you know, of Yang getting Blake gifts, and in one it was kind of a gag because it was a chew toy she got her. But then the other one, she got her a tea set.
And she chose the box.
Yeah, and she chose the box. And then in another episode, Nora getting Ren a gift, and Ren's like, "Is it from you?" "No, why would you think that?" And he's like, he ended up not opening it because he said it's either from one of their enemies or one of her pranks. And then Piero was like, "Nora, your gift is, you know, growling or whatever." And Nora's like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot to put in the air hole." So I'm guessing it was a Grim.
That's what I'm thinking.
I don't know why Nora would get Ren a Grim for a gift, but who knows? Maybe he secretly wants a pet Beowulf or something. I don't know.
Your gift is growling.
So yeah, those little things like that both ships got like a gift giving scene that were kind of turned into jokes, which that's what Rwby Chibi is for. It was there to make us laugh and all that. Moving on, we then get to this in volume 7. Oh boy, I still remember just the reaction to all this. Now, of course, you've got some saying that Nora was projecting, but that's not the point of this scene. So it's funny. I never thought in a million years that Rwby would actually put something in the show to be like, "Oh yeah, all you people who see the similarities between Bumbleby and Renora, you got us." You know, because this is pretty much what this scene did. Like, for one, for the first time in the show's history, you have one other character outside of Team Rwby, you know, which, I mean, there's this running gag that Weiss knows, and there is a scene in Volume 7 where it kind of is hinted that Weiss knows, because everybody calls it Suffering Weiss. And then there was that look that Rwby gave Yang at the end of Volume 6 to kind of show that Rwby knows as well. But this was the first time someone verbally said it. Yeah. And so you've got Nora, you know, saying, you know, "Oh, Blake and Yang are off doing their own thing again." And then Ren, you know, of course, says at least they're back to being friends. And Nora's like, "Bitch, have you not been paying attention?" No. She's like,
that's kind the look on her face, though.
Yeah, she kind of goes. Like, if there was any time for Rwby to break the fourth wall, it would have been right here. For Nora to look at Ren and then look at us like, is he serious? And she says, friends, huh? Just friends. And I remember in our reaction, I was speechless for a couple of seconds. But anyway, I was just like, holy crap. And then Ren, is like, so the point here is that they were having Nora recognized Blake and Yang do have something going on more than friendship, but also as they went into it, her kind of showing that she's also talking about her and Ren at this time being the type of character who is not very open about feelings and all that, of course doesn't probably catch things at first, so he probably legit hadn't noticed between Blake and Yang, but he's also at this point kind of about understanding his feelings for Nora. And of course Nora says, two people that have gone through that much, I think there's more going on. And this is further going to the relation between Bumbleby and Renora, in that Blake and Yang went through all that, against Adam, where Nora and Ren had the exact same thing with the Knuckleby. So you've got two very, very similar stories here. And then when Ren says maybe one of them feels that way, but the other may be worried, he's not talking about Blake and Yang at that point. He's talking about him and Nora. He's saying Nora feels that way about him, but he may be worried to go that extra step. And, this is a combination of things. Him not being very open, him being worried about their current situation, and of course what happened to his parents. And even after it goes back, it focuses more on Rwby and Penny. You hear Nora saying, when he says one of them may be worried, you hear Nora scream, about what? And him going, there's just a lot, going on right now. And then she says, well, how can they figure it out if they don't talk? So.
Which further pushes the point when he even says that, I have a problem, like, he has a hard time expressing himself and talking about anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's, which later, in 8, we find out why. It's because of everything in the past, but also him, it was the next step to him evolving his semblance. So,
yeah.
It kind of adds up. Back then, we obviously didn't know why, and we were fearing for the worst. So it's just.
Oh, you for sure. Like in this episode, you're like, I watched you in our reaction. You were just.
That's just like, no.
Yeah, she was heartbroken. Like you could slowly watch her worrying that Renora was unraveling before our eyes. That's why when the kiss happened, like she was so relieved and happy.
Yes, and so it's like just. But like I said, then it makes much more sense now that we go back and see it again.
Mm-hmm.
That, okay, well, now we know why he's acting this way, why he acted that way, so conflicted, because he couldn't release his emotions enough, which would have contributed to him not being very open, because he didn't understand how to, because he could only mask emotion. He couldn't see or feel it like the way everyone else does.
Whereas at this point, Blake and Yang are realizing how they feel about each other and are being a bit more open about it. They're openly flirting. They're out on a date. So it's not a very hard stretch to think that Nora wants that as well at this point. She wants her and Ren to be open about their feelings to each other, and I'm sure seeing Blake and Yang being happy, and laughing and smiling and,
growing the way they have from especially from the point of when they were all reunited again and moving from there, because they got over that part, and then they took care of, Adam. So they had all that stuff, whereas, and we've talked about this in the other videos, where they're kind of reversed. They haven't had that.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
So.
We'll get to that when we talk about how different things were handled in Volume 8. So, okay, so at the beginning of Volume 8, when the teams split up, I had already noticed, yeah, Ren goes with Yang, Nora goes with Blake and Rwby. So there was already, oh, what's going to happen, you know? So it's very interesting how things are handled from here. You got in Volume 1 where Yang storms out pretty much. And, you know, Blake has this look of sadness watching Yang leave because at this point, Blake's already agreed that she agrees with Rwby. Now, there's been several theories, like, you know, maybe Blake decided to go with Rwby. Like, maybe Blake already knew that Yang was going to go her own way, and maybe Blake wanted to stay with Rwby to watch over Rwby, even though Ruby's their leader. She can handle herself and all that. But they kind of needed Blake to go with Rwby so they could finally have Blake and Rwby bond a little bit more. Because let's face it, this relationship is building, and they kind of need to build a more sisterly relationship between Rwby and Blake. So that's why I did it. And so you kind of have this split where Blake and Yang don't say anything to each other, whereas Ren and Nora, you know, Ren wants to go with Yang to, you know, to help Mantle, where Nora wants to go with Rwby, and he even asked her, you know, what about Mantle? And I love her response. Oh, I'm saving Mantle, but she's just doing it in a way that she thinks would be more effective. So you kind of have a little bit more of tension growing between them because, let's admit it, by the end of Volume 7 into Volume 8, Ren and Nora are not in a good place at all. And it kind of builds as the volume goes on with how Ren is acting. Now, with Yang here, it's the complete opposite. Her being away from Blake and her going her own way, we find out has been bothering her ever since it happened. She legit asked, like, and it's funny, like we always said, color is everything in Rwby, and the part that she finds to fix one of the bikes is purple. And she's looking at it, and she asks John, do you think she thinks less of me for not helping out with Amity? And of course, John being who he is, you know, he didn't realize.
Didn't catch it at first.
Yeah, didn't catch it at first. You know, he didn't realize Pyrrha had feelings for him. He couldn't read the room in Volume 7 when Nora complimented Ren on his outfit, and he didn't get this. He was 0 for 3 at this point. But
just John.
Yeah. So, unlike Ren, who was kind of keeping it to himself, and things just started building up inside of him to where he wasn't talking to anyone about it, Yang, on the other hand, let her concern out that she is worried that Blake may think less of her because she did not go with them to get the message out through Amity. Now, in chapter 3, we hear Nora give her concerns about how she doesn't know who she is without Ren. Now, there was some people that had a problem with that, thought it was a toxic way of thinking, but you have to understand, Ren's all Nora has ever known, really, because she states right here that she was abandoned by her mother because her mother was being attacked by a Grimm. Her mother left her to save herself. And then, you know, we saw in Volume 4 that Nora used to be a very timid child, and Ren is pretty much who saved her from that kind of life. So, yeah, she doesn't know who she is without Ren because he's always been there. And it's great for a character like Blake going through what she did, you know, with Adam and all that, to tell her that once you've been with someone for so long, they become a part of you. But that's all they are, is a part of you. Don't forget the rest, which makes you an individual. And, you know, you can kind of relate this to, you know, Blake talking to Adam a little bit, because there for a while, she forgot who she was because of Adam's influence. It was only thanks to Yang who, in a way, you know, pretty much helped Blake realize that Yang wasn't who Adam was, and that it helped Blake recover into being more of who she was before Adam. Because in Volume 8, you gotta admit, Blake is way more upbeat. She smiles a lot more. She jokes a lot more. She smiles a lot more. She's definitely a, like, I don't know if she'll ever fully recover, because most victims of abuse, it's technically sometimes always there.
It doesn't. Traces still remain. You can just build from it something better, but
Yep.
it never goes away.
Yep. But, this is great. This is showing two sides of the two romantic ships in the show. Nora not knowing who she is without Ren, but Blake pretty much stating that she knows who she is when Yang is not by her side. So it's showing where one relationship is and where the other one is, and how even though Ren and Nora have known each other longer, and yes, they've already kissed and all that, but they're kind of going down here while Bumbleby is slowly going here, because Blake and Yang have grown as individuals away from each other. The time they were apart in volumes 4 and 5, that gave them time to grow as people. So by the time they got back together, they knew who they were. They knew that they also needed each other. So, and this also kind of goes back to what Yang said in Volume 7 to Harriet when the Aesops were talking about how they weren't friends, they were just colleagues. Yang said once you've went through so much with someone, it kind of changes things, And I also loved this. I believe this was Chapter 2. This was another major moment that made me realize, yeah, they're tying Renora together, plus they're kind of teasing that something is going to happen when they reunite, that being Bumbleby and Renora. In the same episode, a member of the Happy Huntresses points out that they're all split up. I believe it's Fiona for Yang and them, and May for Rwby and them, and in both instances, all of them react. When Fiona brings it up, Yang gets wide-eyed for a little bit, and Ren just, I'm done, and walks away. He wanted nothing to do with it. When May said it to Blake and Nora, you could tell Blake was thinking about Yang, but Blake went on, where Nora looked, more concerned and worried. And it's, like I said, it's mostly because at this point in time, Ren is still bottling things in, while Yang, yes, she is worried about what Blake is thinking of her right now, but she's trying to keep a stronger, trying to mask it pretty much because, she's kind of the unofficial leader here of this little group, where Blake is missing Yang and also secretly worrying that Yang may think differently of her. We just didn't learn it till much later. But it just goes on her way, while Nora, who is still worried about her and Ren, is more affected by it. So, once again, it's kind of illustrating one couple who, at this time, is just worried the other is mad at the other when really they're not. And another one that is
worried about the state of things.
Yes. So it's both the same and different at the same time in a way. Now, the grand finale, pretty much, for both ships this long. Well, there was some stuff in the finale and the episode before that for Bumbleby. So I still love it that people will see these two scenes and will still say Blake and Yang are just friends, but Ren and Nora are romantically involved. Okay, so in Chapter 10, as it's, our reaction of that is still getting views. We had probably, I will admit the Renora scene was very romantic, but at the time Chapter 10 aired, it was one of the most romantic moments in the series of, Blake and Yang, putting their heads to each other, Blake putting her arms around Yang, Yang cupping her face, and them just staying like that. With everyone else in the room, they just stay that way. You know, like I said in our reaction, our analysis, it's them being in their own little world where no one else exists. And Ren and Nora do they're alone, but they do the exact same thing. The head touch, the caressing the face. Nora touches his hand on her face like Blake did in Volume 6. It's the exact same thing, but how things are delivered is completely different. What we saw in this chapter was in chapter 11, and a lot of people were worried that Ren and Nora broke up. No, it's not exactly it, but they did kind of put their relationship on hold in a way.
Yeah, they're staying together, but they took a step back. And this between the last pictures, and obviously this one, that's when he unlocked everything, and he now he understands. Now he gets it. That's why, when they were in the Blake and Yang were in their own little world, he just, where's Nora?
Yeah, because he wanted to talk to her and
he
be
sounded like himself.
Yeah.
And it was needed. And the thing is if we go back to even in 7, where a lot of it started, where they were training, he was, and I know I've mentioned before, he was, I think what made it even worse is he was trying too hard to strengthen and,
But in a way, Nora was trying a little too hard as well.
They both were. But, for his semblance, he was trying too hard to do something to not, I don't know if he knew to evolve it, but to strengthen it, to get stronger with it, to be able to do more. And that was the start in making everything bottle up, which, when you bottle things up, it explodes after a while. So, which is what he did.
So, this is just a theory. I'm not saying this is exactly what Rwby is doing, but this is just going off experience and what you've seen other couples do, whether it be movies, television, or real life. What they're doing here is that with Renora, yes, they've kissed, but I think Rwby is kind of showing what happens when you jump in a relationship too fast. Was it the perfect moment for a kiss? Who knows? But we have to admit, after the kiss, things kind of went downhill for Renora there for a while. So what they're doing is, they split up. Ren went on this little journey, one-day journey in a way. But in that one day, he went through what he needed to go through to understand Nora's feelings for him. And
even his own towards her.
Yeah.
He knew he...
Because they say I love you to each other.
And clearly, he's even, the way he said it, he has loved her a long time, but he couldn't understand it. He didn't know how to project it or understand it. And now Nora, he can.
And Nora says, I've always loved you too, but, and we also got to throw in that for the first time, Ren booped Nora's nose, which was cute.
Yes, and that made it even better.
But Nora has not went on that personal journey yet. She needs pretty much to grow as more of a character and become her own person without Ren before she is ready to fully commit to, basically what she's always wanted, and that's to be with him. Now, I thought originally that meant that Nora was going to be one of the characters who fell. That way she could go on that journey without Ren. But no, she's still with Ren in Vacuo. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how they handle that. Though they kind of showed examples of it when they split up to, get people through the portals. Like, she wanted to go off and do one thing, and Ren was paired off to do something else, and he was okay with it.
Now that he understands, he gets, okay, well, you can tell when they split this time, it was definitely a lot different.
He's supporting her decision.
Yes, he's supporting her. He's, there's that refound line of trust between them, to be able to do that. And I believe, I think, I know we've said where we think the focus of 9 is going to be, but I do think we'll get bits and pieces of them, and that may be where we start to see more things for Nora to build herself. Like, I don't think we're going to see a ton, but I think that's where we're going to start to see things, especially since,
unless they spend the whole volume mourning because they think Jean and all the others are dead. But we'll have to see, like, because we, as of right now, don't know where they're going in Vacuo. And yeah, like, I guess it'll be okay to see some of it, but I still want Volume 9 to kind of be considered part 3 of the Atlas arc, like all the other ones. So I'm kind of hoping if we do see.
It more so will be. I don't think we'll see the full force of Vacuo until they go.
Yeah.
But
until they escape.
Yes.
But yeah. Renora is not broken up. They told each other they love each other.
They're going to keep living as a relationship together, but he's going to...
He's giving her space.
He's giving her space and being more open to her, making her choices to do what she needs to do so that they can grow together.
Yeah.
You can do that while still in a relationship. You can let the other grow while you guys are still on hold. They'll still grow as a couple, but they're not going to be
kissing all the time and hanging all over each other.
It's not going to be as big of a thing. It'll be more of the backside of them growing. Like, if that makes any sense.
Now, as far as Bumbleby goes, they've already... What?
Just thinking, like, the next volume, what should happen.
They've already went on their personal journeys without each other. It was volumes 4 and 5. You can kind of say, in a way, I mean, it's like volume 4 is hard to give to a specific character because all 4 girls had a lot going on in volume 4. A lot of people say volume 4 was Weiss's volume. I think I kind of said that myself sometimes, but I think like really thinking on it, it may have focused on Blake the most. Sometimes I want to consider volume 4 Blake's volume. And volume 5 was definitely Yang's volume. So we've seen these 2 volumes of them apart from each other, but growing as characters, realizing who they are going to become. And so by the
6 would have been Rwby's then.
I mean, in a way, though, it was definitely a Blake and Yang volume as well.
Yes, but I meant, like, if you want to, like, pull one specific character to have a huge focus, it'd be Rwby because of her eyes. Her
many speeches in volume 6.
Yes, but her eyes and everything, the growth with her, there.
Rwby and her shonen anime speeches. She's like Goku, ally to good, nightmare to you. I'm the hope of the universe. Golly, that original Funimation dub. Okay, anyway. Kai's better, where he just states that he's a Super Saiyan. So, by the time they reunite in Volume 6, yes, there's still tension because there's still stuff that needs to be said and stuff that needs to be happened, which culminated with the defeat of Adam, who was the source of all of it. And then ever since the end of Volume 6, they've been growing closer. And, it's like Aaron said after Volume 6, they're starting to realize their feelings go deeper than that. And she even said they weren't going to start dating right away. They're not going to make out every 5 minutes.
No. And this goes for both couples as well. When when it is, in the show and they're fully dating, no really, they've worked through the issues that they need to, it's not gonna just stop. Like, they're gonna continue to grow, they're gonna continue to have other obstacles. It's not just like, okay, they're dating, the end. It doesn't work that way.
The point is that where Ren and Nora have known each other longer and kissed first and said their I love yous, they're kind of on a back burner now. They're taking a break. They're giving each other space so Nora can grow as a character. Blake and Yang have already had space between each other. They had their personal journeys. They're now together and they're growing as a pair. And that's kind of what the point of all this has been. People are saying it's coming out of nowhere. No, it's because they're now comfortable with each other as people that they're going forward. They're exploring these new feelings for each other. And so, yes, Renora may be on pause, but I think Bumbleby is going full steam ahead. And I think we will, I know it seems like us shippers say this before every volume, but to be fair, with Volume 8, it was just theorizing. It was guesswork because we had no clues on what exactly was going to happen in Volume 8. You know, we were just assuming, oh, maybe Blake and Yang will kiss. Volume 9, we've got reasons to believe so. That Blake and Yang will finally solidify their relationship. And why is that? Because Blake thought Yang was dead. She had one of the most biggest emotional breakdowns in the show's history when she thought it. When she sees Yang, if she doesn't run to her, jump in her arms, and kiss her, I may actually criticize Rwby at that point. Because to me, that just seems like it would be, story-wise, the perfect time. It would allow it to be the focus of the scene, and it would allow it to be the big moment of an episode. Because, I mean, they're stuck in another world right now. So, yeah, I really do think Volume 9 is when we'll be able to let the balloons go and pop the poppers and scream and cry and just... I really do think that's when it's going to happen. I've just got a feeling. So yeah, very similar things with both relationships. It's to the point where with these alone, you can't say one's romantic and the other one isn't just because you don't like the ship. Like, that literally makes no logical sense. But difference is one still needs to develop, well, for the characters to develop as people, where the other two have went through that and they're moving forward with their actual relationship. We just got to now wait and see what happens when Blake and Yang are back together. Hopefully we won't have to wait too long into Volume 9, but as a recording of this video, we're still a couple of months away from RTX, so we still don't know what all is going to happen yet. Hopefully we'll get some teases or something. Aaron and Barbara always seem to do it every year. But
wasn't last year like more than just them were doing it?
Well, yeah. Well, plus you've got Death Battle.
Everybody was doing it.
Well, yeah. Well, plus you got Death Battle listing Yang in Blake's likes, and stuff like that. And plus you got the DC Justice League comic pushing it even more. But so yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. That was our little Bumbleby and Renora in Volume 8 discussion video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it wasn't too long. If you did, please think about subscribing. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers before the end of the year. As always, guys, it's Canaan.
It's Jesse.
We love you all very, very much. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Bye.